And they're putting it up now. So obviously we started the day with AI because you have to start with AI today. Then we went into some of the macro trends. So what are the things we should think about when we're planning for next year? But actually, the next stage to that conversation is, what are other hotels doing? Like, what are the brands doing to build this brand, and what's behind it? And that's often difficult, especially in a market that is as fragmented as it is here in Europe. And there's different types of brands that you can build. It could be a soft brand, it could be a hard brand, it could be your own complete standalone brand, or a global brand. And how do you then build that success behind this? So we've got 4 amazing speakers that I want to invite onto stage. We've got Laura, who's going to join us from Sircle Hotels, a fantastic brand here in the Netherlands. She's going to explain it more deeply. Marion is going to be joining us from Mr&Mrs Smith. We've got Eirik, who's joining us from Strawberry. And then we've got Dimitris, who's joining us from Wyndham Hotels. I want to invite all 4 on stage with me, and then we're going to start that conversation. As always, you can use Slido to ask your questions. So I'll do first a few interviews, and then at the end of it, we will just open up and ask the most relevant question to those 4 speakers. Come on out.
Am I supposed to do the same?
I feel so
Don't
old.
make that old man sound. When
I know, I just like, standing up all day. I'm used to sitting down. I'm a hybrid worker, so I only sit nowadays behind the screen, which is sad. But what we're going to do is we're going to just go one by one. I'm going to ask a bunch of questions to each person, and afterwards we're going to throw it open to the Slido questions. Laura, we're going to start with you. Who are Sircle Hotels?
So Sircle Collection is a group of hotels all over Europe. We have 3 brands working on a 4th and 5th one. And we also have a few restaurants, a store, and a few other things coming in the pipeline.
And you own and manage all of your hotels?
No, we don't own all of them, but we manage, we own some, manage a few.
So you own the experience
Yeah.
that people are having.
Yeah.
I had a lovely experience at one of your hotels the other day. I moved to Amsterdam about a year ago, and I checked into the Sir Albert, and we had mentioned that we were moving to Amsterdam. And after dinner, we came back to the room, and there was just this such a lovely present where they'd mapped out the whole city, where we should be looking for real estate, what are the cool areas. And I never really get those experiences. Like I find that the experiences we create are quite bland.
Yeah.
And it was just such a nice touch. And I've
Yeah.
told so many people about that experience. It feels like you've got something magical, but how do you create that magic as a culture?
Absolutely. I love that you shared that story, because that's when we talk about AI, those are one of the things I think about. It's like, okay, AI is great and can definitely cut so many corners, but something like that, I find I would be hard pressed to see if like an AI machine was like, oh, give him recommendations. And that's something where it's about intuition too. Like here, you have somebody working at the front desk talking to you in a very natural, I always say, not creepy, don't be creepy, right? We don't want to ask too many questions or get too intrusive. And then intuitively say, oh, what does this person want? And that intuition is not about math and code. So math and code, like David was talking about earlier, is great. And then there's another level where it really is like, oh, that's so helpful. And that Joanne also yesterday at dinner talked about, she went to a hotel and she was like waiting to check in and stressed out. And she was just like looking around, and the person said, hey, are you rushing to a dinner? We can take your bag and unpack it for you. Why don't you go? Nice. And she was, again, that's like where, yes, maybe there could have been something predictive about that moment. But to say that is really about like your heart and your feeling, and seeing that someone's in distress about getting to an appointment. That's where that personal touch
like
really comes in.
teaching emotional intelligence, or hiring for the right people that have those skills, rather than people that can enter data and systems.
Which I'm so excited about, that those people also get a chance. Like my sister's a great example of that. She wasn't good at school. Her EQ was so high though, and she could always sense how people are feeling. So we need to pay those people more and like put them at the forefront and stop. It's not about cutting costs. It's about like, how do you invest in those personalities and that like magical personality that you can't always school or train either.
Yeah. And we talked about blurring lines earlier between what like we used to bucket them, saying, okay, you're a business traveler, you're a leisure traveler, but that isn't how people travel nowadays. They combine all of these things. How do you think about that?
Yeah, I love that insight. That one of our more affordable brands is called Max Brown. We have 2 here in Amsterdam, and I think traditionally you think, oh, the Max Brown, it's like the affordable, you don't have a lot of money to spend, but you still want something quirky. But then we see, oh, that guest is then also splurging on an insane like honeymoon in Ibiza where the room nights are like 600 euros a night. So I think it's a mistake to think like, oh, you're being put into this bucket. And you see it across industries. We were talking about Netflix earlier, and nobody said, oh, Squid Games, this Korean film, is going to be the highest grossing, not film, show. Nobody could have really predicted that, and it was only when you start seeing the data, then sure, you're going to start sharing it with some people. But it's like, it only goes so far, right?
Yeah.
There needs to be an element of magic.
And you talked about data, like what tools do you use to collect data and then use it to kind of create these experiences for customers?
Yeah, of course. We have a central system called Sircle Club, so that's kind of our membership program, and that's where we're collecting all of these data points, and that's where we can start seeing, okay, tracking that and saying like, oh, this person, sure, again, like they might not always spend money, but maybe they want to splurge for their birthday's coming up, and so doing that, it's definitely not as sophisticated as I know it will be in the future.
It will get there. I love always your branding and the design, and when you go to the website, the images that you create, but I also know what it costs to put up an event like this, to get the photographers in, like, creativity costs money without a clear ROI. How do you fight for your budget to, upper management?
I was telling you, I was like, you're going to get me real riled up with this question. Yes. Where do I begin? So, again, another mistake is like, oh, we can like have AI produce the photos, and we don't even need to go and like shoot anything creative. We'll just like type in like the exterior of our new hotel in London, like make it sunny, go. And sure, there's an element of that. I think the creativity, and this is what bothers me a lot, because you'll see now this, you see it on LinkedIn all the time, and I know everyone's on LinkedIn, like the amount of people using ChatGPT to write their LinkedIn posts, and it's okay to do it, I'm not judging, but there's an element of like, where are the people, where's like the personality, right? And so there's only so much that you can do before it really starts feeling robotic and sterile, and I think that comes through in a creative as well, and then really good creative takes really smart people with a lot of references, and it's not just about, oh, like, is your brand director just picking colors? No, she's not just picking colors, There's a lot of intelligence, and again, emotional intelligence. Why doesn't this feel right? Like, what do we need to change about this to communicate what we want to get across?
Nice. And you're in a marketplace with endless brands, and there's this huge commoditization of brands, but you're doing something very unique. So, like, what is the thing that you do to really stand out? Because you're a smaller group versus the Hiltons and the Marriotts and the Wyndhams out there. What's the thing that you feel you do differently to stand out in that very crowded marketplace?
Again, I think it's about just being a bit more boutique and bespoke. And I think because we're an independent group, we're able to also take a lot more risks, and it doesn't go through this like insane filter before, and then it like loses all the spirit. So we can be a little bit more nimble and also be like, oh, what does this feel cool? And can we just test it out and then put it out there? And if it doesn't feel right, or if there's a learning, or if you can always pull back and move much faster.
Yeah.
So that's helpful.
So if you're planning for next year, what's the thing you think people here should be investing in terms of brand? What's the thing that excites you right now?
Oh my God, so many things that excite me right now. Something that came up, and I know we roll our eyes with like influencers and how annoying they are. Like, yes, they're annoying. What I think is really interesting is you see now newer generations are searching less on Google and more on TikTok. And it's like, we have to ask ourselves, why is that happening, right? And it's because we don't want this like very standardized, polished thing constantly. You want somebody just to say on a sloppy TikTok video with like no makeup, be like, hey, I had an amazing time in like Greece, and this is what I would do, and if you have a kid, don't go here and go here, and it's like a real person. So for me, it's understanding, okay, how can we get this realness? And I'm always like, be more colloquial. Like, even when of course I use ChatGPT. I'm like, be more colloquial. And then I'm like, oh, too colloquial. Okay.
Not that colloquial,
yeah,
please.
Not that colloquial. But like, how do we just sound like a real person? How do we do things that make people feel like there's real connection and a real spirit? And we talk about that a lot at work. We talk about like, oh, what it feels soulful, what creates good memories. We'll have workshops and we say, what's your best travel memory? And 9 out of 10 times, people talk about other people. You know, they're not like, oh, there's this cool robot. Like, yeah, maybe there's a robot, sure. But like, I think the real feeling is when you were able to connect with someone emotionally.
Well said. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Marion, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, what is it? What do you do?
Gosh, this is hard. We are a travel club for hotel lovers. So we source the best hotels in the world and we put them on the map. Our intention is to support independent hoteliers, to give them a distribution platform while representing them, their DNAs and who they are. We really want to showcase the beautiful properties out there because all of them are very unique in the collection. And quite often I get a question about what does it take to be a Smith hotel? And I'm sure there will be probably Smith hotels here in the room tonight and today. And I think it's down to the sense of place. It's down to creating that memory that you'll have when you leave a hotel. And this is our art, and curation sits at the very heart of the business. And we've celebrated 20 years anniversary last year. We were also acquired by a larger company, and we were asked about the influence of Hyatt at Mr. and Mrs. Smith. And that was my first question as curation director. I was like, oh my gosh, are you going to tell me what to do? And this was quite the opposite. They were like, you are the experts. We love what you do. You're inspiring us on a daily basis, and we want you to go and pursue your dreams. So here's a bit of funding and have fun. And I think this is the beauty of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. We're quite disruptive in the industry. Content is essential. We love our content. We're so proud. Our writers can't be influenced. And this is the magic. This is what they create. It's dance content inspiring customers, I think.
Because I always thought about Mr. and Mrs. Smith as like an OTA with a very clear segmentation. But then a hotel brand, Hyatt, came in and bought you. It wasn't an OTA that stepped in. So what they were trying to achieve with buying an OTA with clear segmentation?
So I think when you look at the big players in the marketplace, they have much more properties than Hyatt currently has. So where we come in is with the Mr. and Mrs. Smith hotels in the loyalty scheme, because we can essentially help them tap into destinations that aren't on the map now. And it's very expensive to acquire customers, as we all know, so retaining them is essential. And now we've got more than 700 properties, Mr. and Mrs. Smith properties, that are listed on Word of Hyatt. And this gives access to these customers to incredible new locations and also different product types, which they wouldn't have had the potential of doing so quickly.
Because the selection, I'm assuming most people in this room would love to be on your website, but there's a very strict selection process to get in, or?
Yes, and we don't take bribes, just saying. I'm usually followed at trade shows. People are like, what does it take? It's, we do a 360 analysis. We're a very commercial team, and we want to make sure when we start a partnership, we are actually delivering and bringing value for the hotels and adding something. So yeah, it takes sometimes years to make it into the collection because we don't necessarily have searches for a destination. We're very savvy when it comes to making sure we will deliver into the hotels.
Because you talked about the loyalty aspect was the thing that gelled the two of you together. So is that you bringing loyal customers to Hyatt, or is it the other way around, or is it like?
I think it's a mix in the end, but I think when it comes to Hyatt, it's about making sure we are reinforcing their loyalty proposition with more hotels joining the ranks, really.
Got it. And then I saw some of your hotels on your website, which is fantastic, right? There's this cross-pollination. So how do you walk that line to keep a very clear, distinctive brand that you're building versus the brand that you're building then? How do you balance between those two?
So for us, it's about championing these incredible hotels and putting them, on a platform where they can be essentially looked at, reviewed, but we don't touch your DNA. So as part of the curation process, we'll go and inspect the hotels in person, or we'll have our ambassadors walk through the doors. We take lots of notes. We're very curious. We are, so at the beginning I was saying we're the travel club for hotel lovers, but quite often our writers or our members are even more nerdy when it comes to hotels than we are, which we find quite funny because we are very into hotels. And all of this information is gathered, and then we essentially have talented writers that are then publishing hopefully amazing content, and hopefully you'll agree here, that will make the hotels shine. And then we distribute also the hotels to give you further distribution and then optimize your potential in the marketplace. we tend to inspire, as I was saying, and we have a lot of customers that are navigating on our site and then booking directly, which is great for the hotels, and no commission paid. And we love that also because we are able to influence the customers, really.
Yeah. Because how do you make sure that what they get on the website is the experience that they're getting on site? Because you're like a website that sits above it, but do you have any control on the experience that the guests are going to get on site?
We visit. There are always a few visits. So we will visit anonymously, and we will, really push the hotels.
So like a mystery shopper that goes in?
Yes, we do that also. But we don't send anyone to the hotels. We have our PR team that is cherry-picking the right people to make sure there is this link and between the hotels and what the property or the location has to offer. It's all about the story, it's all about the content. And I think this is what then helps all of the hotels to be different and to be published on a different platform.
And are you leading into TikTok or like any of these very
Well,
modern
actually,
platforms?
I've seen a Slack message this morning, and it looks like we've hired a new head of social who is going to be going after TikTok.
Nice.
I think it's the next thing. We have to.
Yeah.
But I'm not an expert, and I'm not on TikTok. I have no idea how it works.
So move along is what you're saying.
Yes, thank you.
Got it. In our pre-conversation, we talked a lot about breaking silos, and you think that actually the typical departments that we used to have in hotels actually are no longer relevant or are shifting. Do you want to just share your thoughts around this?
Yes, so I think I come from a hotel background. My parents have a hotel, and everyone operates in their own department somehow, and I find it really hard to break silos. So what we've done at Mr. and Mrs. Smith or in my team is I've got creatives in my team, I've got people that are very technical, I've got contractors, so how do you glue them together? And instead of having them working in silo as part of their own disciplines, we decided to operate as mini pods, really, and I essentially merged them all together. And I think if we are able to replicate that within hotels, it means that you'll create trust between different team members, and you'll ensure that they understand what the others are bringing to the table, what the pain points are. And if you're, let's say, behind the bar or behind front desk, you might not realize what the others are facing. But the more you communicate, the more you build on that trust, I think the more the customers will benefit from it, because they will know you and they will be talking to each other about your needs and what you are really here for. Is it a birthday? Is it a celebration? What are you going through? And I find it quite hard with different departments within hotels to break the silos, and I feel like we should be pushing that and rethinking that and doing retrospectives and operating almost as a tech team within hotels, I will say.
Nice. And as you look towards next year, what's the thing that you get excited about that our industry should be leaning into doing?
This is hard. Gosh, you're pushing us today. For me, I'm excited to understand what's next. There are different trends in the industry, and I'm a hotel lover. I'm not a camper, but glamping is a new trend. You know, we are seeing some brands that are emerging. We're seeing customers that want to reconnect to nature or well-being. And I think the new product types or new locations are definitely something that I'll be on the hunt for.
Watch this space.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Eirik, Strawberry.
Yep.
Tell us about it.
Sure. Strawberry, the company.
The company, not the fruit.
So we are a company in the midst of a lot of change and transformation. I think last week we celebrated, it was 1 year since we rebranded from Nordic Choice Hotels. We used to be called Nordic Choice Hotels. We have the master franchise contract in the Nordics for Choice Hotels International, about 240 properties. But we are very clear, we don't believe in a standard guest. No guest is standard. You're a different person when you travel with Beyonce and your partner than when you travel for work, right? And you might be a completely different guest.
I love how
Dimitris.
my dog gets a name, but my partner doesn't get a name. Great.
I was like, you've traveled with Beyonce?
But you said Beyonce was the most important, right?
It is, that's
At
true.
least more than yourself. So anyway, but that means we don't have a standard hotel. We've concentrated in the Nordics, but we might have 10, 15 hotels in the same city, but they're all different brands, from budget to full service to luxury, unique hotels.
Nice.
So yeah, that's the short
Because
version.
you've been known as Nordic Choice, and Choice being in the brand, and then last year there was a real shift to say, okay, no, we actually have choice that we have as brands on the roof, but as a company, we also have Strawberry with independent brands. How do you gel the mix of working with a franchise brand, but then also building your own brand on the side of that?
Well, I think if I can take you back to the pandemic. I know nobody wants to be back at the pandemic,
No.
but during the pandemic, the few of us who were still left at the office, we didn't have any money to invest, but we had a lot of time to think. And sort of we sat around, thought about the future, and we realized a few things. One is that our average guest stays with us for 1.3 nights a year. How do you build loyalty when the person thinks about your brand once a year? That's one thing. Then we figure out we must be more relevant to more people more often to build that loyalty. And I think the other thing we realized that in the terms of the sort of the mega brands and whatever, it's not so relevant anymore. Concept is very relevant, distribution is very relevant, but being part of these huge mega international standard hotels that are the same in Jakarta as in Oslo, maybe not so much. So we have an idea that we should localize much more our hotel offerings to serve our guests in our market better.
And do you find that guests are confused? Like if I'm checking into a Clarion, but actually it's a Strawberry hotel at the same time, what's the guest experience I should be expecting?
No, but I think people, they check the photos before and they go on your websites. They're not expecting that same standard. At least our guests in our market are not. Maybe it's more so in the US or whatever. If you go to Marriott, it's a Marriott, it's a Marriott, it's Marriott. But there are we even within our brands, they are sometimes different. Maybe okay, there's one brand that has all the conferencing, but no, I don't think we are confusing our guests with that.
So one of the things that I love about Strawberry is the very unique culture. All of the entertainment, it's all inspiration that we've taken from your conference, stolen from your conference, because we loved it. And I think every time I meet your teams, there's this just very unique culture that you build. What is the magic?
I think there's no magic with culture, but you have to invest in it. I mean, we invest lots in culture. We have passion officers, we have culture officers, people who are dedicated to just sort of spreading our values, which is energy and enthusiasm and courage. We always say it in Norwegian, we have a 3-letter abbreviation, EMB. It's energy, courage, and enthusiasm. And we sit in management meetings and we make decisions and we're thinking like, yep, is there enough EMB in this decision? So you have to sort of live those values and continually sort of train people in it. And I mean, probably everybody here who runs an hotel, they have a huge turnover. So you have to work with this all the time. It has to be part of training. You have to celebrate. We have big internal conferences. There's always a reason to celebrate. Things like with social media, we have, for a quality brand, they have something called Q moments. So at the hotel, when they organize a Q moment for a guest, they'll put it there so all the other hotels can see. Maybe they fill the bathtub with balloons, or they dress up for some kid, or they give a nice note, or do something special, and they share all these moments. And all those things help build culture. And of course, we have an owner also who lives it.
Yeah.
And that's important too. It needs to be sort of management focused, yeah, also.
So shifting a little bit, you've gone through quite a transformation technologically. You've always built your own systems in-house, the core pieces of the systems, and then about 2 years ago we started a conversation, and you've really gone through a complete transformation of all systems in all hotels. What's that journey been like?
Well, we came from legacy software, but very ambitious also with tech. We were early to do self-check-in and mobile keys and everything, but that old legacy stack was holding us back. It was hindering us. And that was part of what we saw when we wanted to be more relevant for more people more often. We needed some enablers to connect partners more easily. So that also came out of that process. So we started working with you, amongst other things. And for the last it's about 2 years. Yeah. So we changed everything from top to bottom in our tech stack, from every PMS, ERP, CRM, RMS, every 3-letter abbreviation you can think of. And I have to give some credit to you because we had a really, really good partnership. And we have an amazing team ourselves. We spent maybe 12 months to plan and test for some hotels. And now the last 12 months, every week, 5-10 hotels. just roll out changing to this to an entire new tech stack. And it's been a rough ride at times, but now we're seeing that we can reap the benefits.
Yeah.
We're already seeing that before our tech stack was old, we couldn't use an RMS system. Our revenue people were sitting in Excel, huge Excel sheets, and we had some robots transfer it. But now they use RMS, and we take market share. We get better prices. We can see it in our statistics. We can yield our restaurants differently. We now use artificial intelligence for accounting. Nobody likes to do accounting, right? But this AI software will post your invoices directly into the ledger. And of course, I have to say, working with new systems is so much easier. It's easier to connect, but it's also easier to train our staff. And with like 50% turnover on a lot of front office positions, that matters. We used to do like 4 days of classroom training, so you could learn the F11 shortcut, exclamation mark, to check somebody in, right? But now it's so easy for them. So now that we can focus our onboarding of new employees on guest communication, guest satisfaction, upselling, and even though we're spending more time doing that during onboarding, we still spend less time before our new people are able to service the guests.
Nice. Because it's been hardcore open heart surgery that you've done. We're now at a stage where you're almost done. I think we're like less than 10 hotels to roll out. So what's the next stage of innovation now that you're in the cloud with all of your systems? What's the next thing that gets you excited for next year?
Now, what gets me excited about next year is really finishing what we're doing and reaping all the benefits. I mean, when we did this, we have a we have a business case that we should bring in a lot, recoup our investment. And we need to really work with the organization. It's not just about having the new tools, it's about using them and really exploiting them. And of course, a big thing we're doing now, we're doing a loyalty partnership with the airline Norwegian, which is part of our being more relevant to more people more often. So it's a joint currency for loyalty. And we couldn't do that 2 years ago because we just didn't have the technological core to build on. So I think adding new partners, adding new experiences across our sort of ecosystem, that's
because the goal is that Norwegian airline travelers would now cross-pollinate into your brand.
Completely. So it would be sort of a common loyalty. Yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're very excited.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Dimitris, welcome.
Thank you.
Always great having you here. I follow you on LinkedIn, and you are on a plane every single week going somewhere. So you probably check into more hotels than anyone in this room. Do you want to just share maybe a remarkable hotel experience that you've had recently that just really stuck in your mind?
Yeah,
Sorry, no, I want you to first introduce what Wyndham is. I
Yeah,
completely skipped that.
Yeah. So no, Wyndham is very simple. World's biggest franchise business in the world. 9,200 hotels, 95 countries, 105 million members, Wyndham Rewards, and 25 brands. I've never made it more than 10, so do not ask me to name the brands. I only made it to number 10. Very, very embarrassing moment. So actually, it was an interesting experience. You know, you talk about people a lot, and I was, and unfortunately, I have to mention one of Wyndham's experiences. I'm at the Wyndham Grand Doha in Qatar, and I'm dying for a coffee. I had an overnight flight. I'm dying for a coffee, and I meet Lou. Lou is the guy from Uganda. I've never met this guy before. He worked at the coffee station, and he had this complicated machine that he was making that coffee, and I was dying for a coffee. I was really desperate. And I said, Lou, can I get a coffee? And he started processing, waiting the coffee, going through the process, and I'm like, Lou, I'm dying. I'm on the flight. I need a coffee, buddy. And I said, can you just speed up the process? He said, chill. For me, it's an art. For you, it's a coffee. That was the best thing I've ever heard. For me, it's an art. For you, it's a coffee. I said, yeah, but I kind of need that art now. I'm dying. And he said, no, Dimitri, you got to wait like everybody else. I got to wait the coffee, and I want to make sure that you get the best coffee experience in your life. And I said, where you've been all my life? You know, I want to marry you. Where are you? You know, where have you been? That's an amazing experience.
Great.
And I heard so much. You know, I turned 60 last week, which was a very decisive moment in my life. And I have the pleasure of having 2 teenage daughters that only communicate to me through WhatsApp. They don't talk to me anymore. They only talk to me. And when I ask them why, they say it's easier. So here we are talking about technology and young people and stuff in hospitality. And then you've got Lou. And I think Lou is the future of hospitality, is that art of hospitality right there. The guy came from Uganda, 22 years old, and he found a new future in hospitality. And I said to my kids, that's the guy you gotta meet. That's the art of hospitality. So that was the experience that was with me. I only had it 6 months ago, and I keep on talking about Lou.
Brilliant.
He probably hates me by now because I've
Does he
spoken
know?
about him. Yeah, he does know. Yeah,
Nice.
I take selfies with Lou every time I go to Doha. So yeah, that's
Nice.
what the art of hospitality. To me, that's what the most important thing is.
Nice. Because as I grew up in hotels 20 years ago, most of them were managed brands. So the brand controlled the experience on site. But now we're moving towards a franchise brand because it's asset light. It's just better and more profitable. How do you control that experience of Lou as a brand?
It's very difficult. And you know what? I mean, we're a Wall Street listed company, and some of you might, through your pension funds or whatever, might be shareholders of Wyndham. We are driven by two things. When I die, not if I die, when I die, there's going to be one thing on my grave: EBITDA and net room growth. Because that's the only thing, you know. And I have 4 lives a year. Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4. If I don't make Q1 and Q2, there's not going to be Q3. So that's my life. So how do you do that? How do you match the fact that you work for a Wall Street listed company, the animal needs to be fed, you had to be successful, your EBITDA, your energy, but then you have the experience with great difficulty. One thing that we learned through COVID, forget about brand standards. You know, in the past where they used to, oh, you want to be X brand? This is what you need to do. And they gave you a whole book. That book now has gone to that. Why? Because our customers decide what the brand's future is going to look like. You know, when we sat in rooms and we decided, oh, this is a great brand that is going to fit in Jakarta and it's going to fit in New York. It's not going to happen anymore. You got to localize. You got to make sure that, you know, we've got 1,500 hotels in China. Are they the same like the hotels we've got in the Middle East? They carry the same brand. Are they the same? No, they're not. I think hospitality is changing. And it's not us changing. It's consumers are demanding the change. They tell us every day. They tell us through social media. I've got a TikTok account after, you know, I'm very proud. I posted 2 videos already and I have 900 likes. My day was just, I was so proud. I saw my kids, I'm like, 900 likes. These are the people who are telling us how the brand standards should look like. It's not us anymore. You know, the days that we used to dictate, we used to go to hotels and say, oh, that's a yellow chair. Brand standards pay 25, no yellow chairs. Who cares? Yeah. It's the consumers who dictate the future of hospitality, the future of brands. And I think that from a Wyndham perspective, I think we realize that. That's why we're becoming far more flexible and far more open for regionalizing versus the global big brother that controls everything.
Nice. You've been the target of acquisition conversations, but also you're doing acquisitions. Last year you acquired Vienna House.
Yep.
We're doing acquisitions. Everyone seems to be doing acquisitions right now. What's your view on this? Is this a good thing for our industry?
Look, it's a good thing because I don't know, some of you might know, out of the 25 brands that we have, 20 we've actually acquired. So we are a company that likes to acquire brands. We find something that we like. If it's available, we buy. We're a legacy company, right? We've got brands that have been around for 60, 70 years, like Aramadas, for example, very legacy. How do you actually make them come to the 21st century? You need to infuse them with new ideas. So we bought Vienna House here in Europe. Why? Because they had a great brand architecture and they had a great design. We've taken a lot of that and we're now putting it into the other brands that we have. Instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, because it would need money, resources, it would need all sorts of infrastructure, what do? You find a brand that you believe, if you infuse your existing brands with some details that this brand has, you change your infrastructure, your ecosystem. That's what we've done. So we bought Vienna House. We did a strategic alliance with River, Waterwalk, an extended stay luxury in the United States. We've just have a strategic alliance with Sam Nazarian, one of the leading hoteliers in the world, the guy who founded Modrian, Delano, and SLS. So we created a brand together called HQ. And somebody will say, what is Wyndham doing with Sam Nazarian? I mean, this guy is like quality, luxury, da-da-da. That's what we need. We need to infuse our luxury, our existing legacy brands with new ideas. And that's, again, the beauty and the art of hospitality. So very exciting times.
Nice. So same questions I've been asking everyone, like looking forward, what's an area that you think people in this room should be looking at and investing in?
I think we need more Taylor Swift concerts in Europe next year.
Yes.
Definitely. I didn't know who Taylor Swift was until it became a revenue management item on my books. That tells you how old I am. So we need more events. We need more, yeah, literally more Taylor Swifts. Look, the thing that I asked my team, and you know, every year we do this management retreat, and they expect me to come up with this profound business strategy. And this year is very simple. What else? What else is out there that we have missed? Because there's so much innovation going on. I mean, look at this room. There are so many. People ask me why I'm here, because you bring more innovation here and more new creative thinking than any other event that I've been. So you need that what else. The moment you allow people to be creative and say, don't come up to me with business plans or whatever. Just tell me what else can we do to become better and more profitable. Because, you know, we still need to make money, you know,
yeah.
EBITDA, NRG, Grave, all of that. We still need to feed the monster. But what else is out there that we can pursue? The moment you allow creativity, that is when things happen. And one last thing, what we did recently, we created a shadow board. So I have my board in EMEA, which is the legacy C-suite guys, and we created a board of 20 interns between the age of 21 to 25, and they meet once a month, and they tell me how bad I am in what I do.
I love that.
They're the best. That's the best thing I've ever done.
In what format? How do you?
Any format. Online, Zoom, face-to-face, we take away, and I sit there and say, you're such a lousy leader, Dimitris. I said, thank you. Thank you.
Super helpful.
That was a wrong decision. Thank you. They're amazing. They're amazing. They're the best thing I've ever done as a leader, actually. That shadow board has given me more insight in our business than anybody else. So.
Nice.
Are your daughters managing them?
No. I'll tell you a funny story, talking about hospitality and people and resources. So my daughter decided, my youngest is 25, she decided to go and work in hospitality for 6 months to see how it is. And she couldn't work at a Wyndham property, so I had to take her. She went to Barcelona to a friend of mine, and then she sent me this selfie. Selfies is the other thing. They communicate with selfies. I'm a live dad. So they sent me this. She sent me this selfie. She said, best job in the world. I'm like, oh, this is amazing. What are you doing? She said, I'm an experiences officer. I'm like, oh, this is not legal. So I called the guy that she works for. I said, what have you done to my daughter? This is illegal, man. What is an experiences officer? He said, no, don't worry, she's a receptionist. And I'm like, what does that mean? He said, listen, mate, it's very simple. I advertise for receptionist, 0 CVs. I advertise for an experiences officer, 50 CVs. That's the answer on hospitality resources. So she's an experiences officer. She loves it. She's a receptionist, really. I never told her that, by the way, because that would ruin her dreams. So
I can listen to you all day.
Yeah.
Thank you. Slido, let's go to your questions and see what you want to know from this panel. Lucas is asking to Eirik from Strawberry, how do you select the best functioning and effective AI tool to automate the tedious and repetitive tasks?
I think there's so many softwares out there now that it's difficult to navigate in that landscape. But I think first of all, you have to figure out what do you actually want to solve for. Where do you think you have the most potential? The best way is probably when you have working with partners already that are incorporating AI into their products, because that makes it easy to sort of get started if it's Salesforce or Muse or whatever, right? But I don't know, coming to conferences like these, where you meet the new vendors and you check it out, or you're curious and you sort of learn But you really have to do some screening and understand, will it actually solve the problem? Are they actually able to deliver on their promise? Because there's so many sort of players out there now that you could just end up paying for and not really reap the benefits. So I think it's still a very early, immature market in many ways.
Yeah. And I see a lot of hotels ask, oh, we need to be an AI and we need to automate. But actually, rule-based for automation is great. Like, automate all of your payments tomorrow. But there's still this fear, like, no, I want to check the amount that we're going to charge and I want to press a button. And we're like, why? And actually, you don't need AI to automate the bulk of it. It gets to that last bit when it gets really difficult. That's when AI should come in. But as an industry, we have such a long way still to go before we have to talk about AI.
And it's also a mental shift for our employees to trust the systems, right?
Yeah.
That's and I think also you have to remember this about data. If you don't have clean data, if you don't have data, it is to train these models on. It's difficult to get the effect. So you really have to work on that too.
Thank you. A question from Martinez. Any reward membership programs that are still relevant today? Ooh, spiky question. Who wants to take that?
I mean, I can tell you, we talk about 105 million members. It's just a community, right? You're building a community. It's not about how many you have, how many are active, how many are actually following you on your path to whatever hospitality is next. So yes, between the big five, the Choices, the Marriotts, the Hiltons, the Wyndhams, the ISGs, and so forth, we have about 1 billion people in our rewards programs. Does it mean anything? It does to a lot of people. To some people, it means nothing. It's just another membership that you've got. But for us, it means a lot because we try to build a community and we communicate with those members. We try to push destinations. For example, we're doing a lot of work now with India, pushing India as a destination. How do you do that? You actually advertise India to 105 million members, and you say, look, this is incredible India. That's what you do. You actually try to build a community. It doesn't always work, but it's a great start to start putting people together.
Yeah. And Marion, do you feel that community is loyalty, or are they two separate things?
They are, but they're not. I think building a community is building your loyalty. I think for us, it's very obvious that customers are very loyal because we deliver something very consistent and they know what to expect, and therefore they're coming back to us for a reason. But the more we are adding to the offering, the more they want to be part of it. So listening to our members, understanding what's next, without disappointing, which is very hard to do, especially with different loyalty schemes out there, and competition, let's be honest, you need to be quite vigilant. But the more you listen to your members or customers, I think the more you're going to nail that. And for me, it's almost the same.
Nice.
Can I just add on that?
Yeah.
I think this is, transactional programs work for some people. I mean, there's so much. Most of our members are sort of blue tier level. It doesn't really work for them. But for our platinum members, it works on the transactional model. But what works for everybody is being recognized. That you greet them by name when they come into the hotel, that you know they stayed with you before, and that you collect that data and work with that, because that matters. People want to feel special. Yeah. They want to. So that will always work. So that's a good reason to keep on working with loyalty programs to sort of collect that data.
But I enjoyed. I was at one of your conference inns the other day, and as I checked out, I said, "Oh, can I get a late checkout because flights?" And they said, "Well, there's a fee for that." And she announced the fee to me, and then she said, "Oh no, actually, you're one of our members, so it's completely for free for you." And it was just such a simple thing. I was like, "Oh, it was worth me signing up to the program because the benefits are instantly gratifying. Instead of me saving up points for a year and then getting that benefit, it instantly gave me a benefit, which was powerful."
And it improves your family relationships. My kids, again, they talk to me because of my points. They want to use my points. So it improves, bribe, You got to bribe your kids.
Yeah.
Points is a great way to bribe them, so it works.
Do you want to share some of your points with us?
It's going to be on my grave as well. The guy who had 1 million points and didn't get to use them.
We have a question from John asking, what tools can hotels utilize to show their appreciation to employees? And I think actually that's probably a good question for you. No?
Oh, yeah, sure. What tools can hotels use? Well, I think like your example was a really lovely one, how to just customize things. So it's not just like a bottle of champagne, or sure, like not having to pay for late checkout is really nice. But I think it's really about how can you do something that feels like I'm the only person in this hotel right now that is getting this.
Yeah.
Because I have this specific experience happening right now. And I think, there's so many great examples of that, but it's really about empowering the people on property to do that, and making sure that they feel like they're able to approach, they're able to listen, or even able to spend a little money on doing something. And there's so many programs like that, right, where you can say like, oh, go and get something unique, and we try to arm our teams with doing the same thing.
Do you give them a budget, or like how much money do you give them?
It depends on what it is, but there is a budget, yeah. And so they'll do really sweet, heartwarming things. And like even for like one recent example, somebody from our team went to our new hotel in Milan, and she has an adorable dog, Maggie, and they gave her a puzzle of her dog Maggie, like a little travel puzzle. And I was like, oh, that's so sweet. And it's like it took time to plan, right? But it's just like a sweet thing that if you're a dog lover too, like you are.
And has it ever gone too far, to the point where it's cringe? Like it's, I wish you hadn't taken it that far.
Of course. This is like my worst nightmare. When I see some things, I'm like, oh my God, don't do that. So yeah, it's like, but this is hard, right? This is when you deal with people and not robots. There are definitely moments where I'm like, okay, we took it a little too far. Like, don't go deep diving into their Instagram and pull photos out of their children, like, or like, especially with like really cool, like this really cool person who works at Nike was checking into the hotel, and they were about to put like a swoosh sign on the door, and I was like, they're cool, like be cool, so you have to adjust accordingly. But I think the times where it's cringe is so small that it shouldn't drown out the rest.
Yeah.
Right, so you don't like have this, like you're talking about these brand decks, like you're allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do this. Like you trust your team, have the right vocabulary to talk about what the guidelines are, and then sure, there's gonna be 2% of the time where you're like, didn't love that, but that shouldn't take away the 98%.
Nice, thank you. Last question.
If I can add, I think recognizing your staff and celebrating their wins, even if they're small, will have a huge impact on your teams and their trust and how they're feeling, and that gets them a long way. We've definitely noticed that.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. Dimitris, the last question I saw, which is lovely. People are interested in your daughter. So she started in hotels. She was, gaslit into being a receptionist. Is she going to stick with us, or is she out the door and moving on to a different industry?
Oh, God. Alex, I'm going to kill you. Who's from Hopper? Okay, so yeah, so I've got, and again, our lives is all about story, right? That's what hospitality is all about, is storytelling. I pick up a lot of stories from my kids because they're far brighter and nicer than I am. So my eldest is 27. She works with domestic violence victims. So she's and my younger one, the 25-year-old, she works in hospitality. So they fight together all the time. She said, "You are useless. I do things good for humanity. I work with people who are victims of domestic violence." And my younger daughter said, "And I make people happy." And she said, every time they come to my hotel, she calls it my hotel. I've never thought I own a hotel. But anyway, when she says, people come to my hotel and I make them happy. So she decided to stay, because our business, if you don't love people, there's no room for you in this business. Go become a microbiologist or something in a lab. You gotta love people. And one daughter loves people, and she does good things about people who are victims of domestic violence. And the other daughter decided to stay in hospitality because she still loves people, and she wants to make people happy when they come to her hotel. So I think that's the essence of hospitality. We make people happy. A lot of people in the media ask me, "What do you do for a business?" I said, "I make people happy," and they think I'm a drug dealer. But I'm a hotelier, and that's what we do. We make people happy.
Well said. I think that's a perfect note to end this session on. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.